Is there any way you can make it, the print a little bigger? I don't know how to do it.
All you have to do is double click on a meeting agenda screen with your mouse. And it will stay large on your end.
Greg, you can hit the 3A, that large A and the font size there.
I made it way bigger.
Yeah, so if you don't have, all you have to do is double click this window, this meeting agenda window, and it will stay on that on your end. We're live.
Okay, I want to welcome everyone here at the council committee meeting. Call this meeting to order. Has anyone got any additions to the agenda? If not, I have one. I'd like Curtis just to give us a history of the Water Commission, how it came to be, the Policing Commission, a history of when and why we took over Chief Mountain, and maybe on the fire services too, if we could. That'll be at the end. I know that's a little off the cuff, Curtis, but I'd appreciate if you could just give us some history, and maybe I can fill in what you don't have or know or remember.
Yeah, no problem.
I barely could hear you.
That's no problem on my end.
Okay, did everybody hear Curtis?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, 2.1, 3.4 COVID update, further enhanced measures. Curtis, I'm sure you want to talk on this one?
Yeah, that was just an addition. If you want to do it at the end or before, whatever you prefer.
Oh, you can do it now, 2.1.
Okay. So as you all probably are aware, this afternoon at about 4:30, the province of Alberta announced further enhanced measures that are going to be in place for COVID restrictions in the province of Alberta. And we just wanted to spend a minute to go over some of those with council, the ones that will pertain to the town of Raymond's operations anyway. And so this is, we do admittedly need a bit more time to look into this, to figure out all the different angles and ways that this will impact us, but just a general conversation. If you have any questions, please let us know and we can try and get those answers for you. But as of December 8th, effective immediately, all indoor and outdoor social gatherings have been prohibited. And there are potentially accompanying fines up to $1,000 that can be placed for those. With all of the enforcement, the province has indicated that the RCMP, and they have extended powers to community peace officer level 1s, which is what we have employed at in the Ridge Regional Public Safety Services Commission. They are all able to enforce under the provincial orders if required. But just to kind of go into further here, so the indoor and outdoor gatherings, this is just kind of, I guess, more so information for the public. It is prohibited completely. There are some exceptions, but that's effective as of today. Going down though into workplace and learning centers. So as of today as well, masks are mandatory in all indoor public spaces and workplaces. So regardless of where you live in the province, as of today, 4 o'clock, if you are leaving your home and going into a business or other public facility, a mask is required. Effective December 13th, working from home is mandatory when a physical presence is not required. We are wanting to get a bit of input from council how you want us to staff the office. Much of the staff can work from home, but there is still that front counter presence. Are we wanting to have it open business as usual, or only set hours on set days for that front counter option to allow for that? If the public needed a face-to-face interaction, they can pay their bills online through their banks. They can make phone calls. That'll still be operational. You know, if they have to ask questions to the development office or to any other department, that will still function just like normal. It's just there won't be necessarily a physical presence unless you move from that point. And so I don't know if you want to just spend a few minutes talking about that now before I go further. But if you have any direction on that, or if you'll just leave that for us to decide internally.
Curtis, how much traffic do we get coming through the front? Like, do we get a lot of public coming in to pay bills and stuff?
It depends on the time of the month. There are people that do come in. I can't give you an exact number. I think a large majority of people do pay online or through their banks, or have a direct deposit where it just automatically comes out. But there are people who do come in, and definitely those that are interacting with the development office, they're almost always in-person visits, unless they're just inquiring. But once they're actually into the development process, they usually come in and visit with Mark directly. So it's hard to say. It will be an impact to some, there's no question, but theoretically, this is only in place, hopefully, for 4 weeks, and it is over the Christmas break. So, you know, that the likelihood of people doing a lot is probably less than at any other time of the year during this time, and so that is one positive, at least through the timeline.
Well, my own thoughts on it are, I'd like to think, I like the physical presence there for people to come in. I wouldn't want to frustrate our public when they're trying to pay their taxes or their utilities. We need those paid, so I'd like to see it open. She's well protected back there. And then, like, I went there today and she wasn't in, and the door was open, and someone else from the back office was there, and they came out. So I think it'll work. I'd like to see business as usual. Anyone else have any thoughts?
And I'm happy to leave it up to administration, but it is nice to have a presence there if people want to come in and pay bills.
Yeah, I agree too. It's nice for people. I mean, there are people that, you know, don't know how to do all the other stuff. So, hey, if they need to come in and pay, we certainly want the money.
Yeah, I agree.
I got a question.
Sure, Counselor.
Curtis, when people need to visit with Mark, they can call him on the phone, and then has he been having in-person meetings, or has he been doing meetings virtually? How has that been working for him?
Greg, I'm not sure if Mark is still here.
Yeah, I can speak to that because Curtis has been home isolating for less than a while. There's the odd time where he does come in, or people come in to meet him to provide documentation and things. We've moved to virtual meetings wherever possible. He's one of the roles that I'm trying to determine what would be the best course of action. We may take a bit of a intern process in the office where, if Mark can be available, 1 or 2 days a week for those really urgent or in-person meetings that cannot be avoided. And so we're trying to make sure that we can accommodate and comply with the provincial regulation. But again, this is really fresh and new, so I don't know exactly what that's going to look like.
Well, I'm sure we can leave it up to administration to try to figure this out, but I think you've got our input too.
Okay, yeah, we'll do our best to follow the legislation, obviously, and limit contact where possible, but determine how we can at least keep a presence.
Okay. So 3.1, the Raymond Handy Bus Society.
Actually, sorry, Bear, if I can just continue. So, so going down further, business and service restrictions. So some of these will begin, actually all of these will begin December 13th. I won't go into the retail side of things, but entertainment and recreation, as of December 13th, the library, the museum, the arena, the VSP Fitness, any other rec facility that we have that is an indoor facility is also required to close. So as I guess public skating is available from now until Sunday morning, Saturday night, and then at that point it won't even be allowed because we'll have to close from that point on for the next 4 weeks. So just wanting to have that put up to the public, library access, arena access, and things of that nature will be restricted for 4 weeks due to the order from the province.
Just curious, Curtis, but what's the cost of taking out the ice and putting it back in 4 weeks or whatever? What would be the cost of that? Is it more viable just to leave it in and not use it for 4 weeks?
I would have to consult with some of the staff that are probably a bit more aware of that than me, but from our conversations in the past, unless it's going to be for an extent of a much longer period of time, I think it's in our interest to keep the ice in and just, make sure everything else is shut off, but just keep the ice cold. If it's gonna be stretching into, you know, February, March, then, you know, if we come into January 8th or whenever these restrictions are theoretically supposed to end, and we're still down in lockdown, then I think that's a conversation we can have at that time, or maybe it's just time to take the ice out and just let it be for a year.
There's cold weather on the forecast, which will help to keep it colder and keep our operation costs down.
Correct.
Okay,
So that's it.
Question, Curtis.
Any questions? Yeah.
The community center building with the library and the theater, the little pantries, there's a pantry in the rear entry. Will there still be public access to that building, or will that building be closed?
Well, the building will still be accessible, I suppose, for the businesses if they're allowed to. I'd have to look at the specific individuals or realities for the businesses that operate within the building. There may still be people within the community center, but it may not be necessarily open to public access. But potentially we could make the Victoria Park location potentially available. If that, or not the Victoria Park, you have that at the, what's the other location, Councilor Foss, the medical clinic?
There's an outdoor pantry at the medical clinic and the seniors, but they only have dry goods. The one inside the rear entrance of the community center has canned goods and all kinds of things that wouldn't survive the weather outside.
I'm not sure how to answer that at this point. I mean, it's something we can definitely consider, especially if council feels that having access to such a worthwhile service is needed for those in the community that may need it. We could try and accommodate, but we need to make sure somehow that we're controlling that people just aren't wandering throughout the building.
Curtis, just Greg here. I'm going to send an email to the tenants just to determine what their status is going to be after this week. That will determine basically what's going to happen in that building. There's no real community programming going on in that building really to speak of. Curtis, if you could just mute your mic while you're playing with that, sorry. That Willie requires us to open the building other than these businesses at the present moment. So as soon as I find out if they're going to be opening, then we'll know a little bit more about what's going to happen there.
Thanks. Just keep me or whoever you have in contact with
for sure.
the pantries in the loop.
okay, well, I think that's wise. If there's someone in the building you want working there, then there is someone in the building, so that's a good point, Greg. Any further, Curtis, you want to talk about?
Not at this time.
Okay, so we'll move on then. Anyone else have any comments on that? Okay, we'll move to 3.1, the Raymond Handy Bus Society. I guess Carmen Clark wanted to be there, but she couldn't because of the restrictions now, so she's not there. Maybe Councillor Peters, you want to talk on this?
Yeah, I can do it a little bit here. So we had a meeting, the end of the month of November, we met and we got a report done up. I kind of talked about this a little bit at council last week, I believe, but yeah, there's some notes there that were set forward. Talks about our partners that are all involved in the Handy Bus, Town of Raymond, County of Warner, Auxiliary Hospital, and Senior Society. And a lot of these groups do contribute some monetary funds to the Handy Bus. We did have an election or an organizational meeting, and Carmen Clark was nominated and did accept the position as president. Vice President Gary Phillips. Our treasurer is Lacey Harris. And Abe Tinney will continue to be the secretary and the admin support for this group. I talked about the differing numbers of rides in comparison from 2019 to 2020. If you look down that sheet, there's a chart that talks about, I won't go through each month, but you see the difference, especially when COVID was hit and was pretty strong of the differences in rides. There were some highlights that the driver presented to us, that they had a trip to Waterton and they had a trip to Calgary. And in our discussion, our Handy Bus meeting, I can't remember the cost of the Calgary trip. Abe, was it $330 or something?
Yeah, I think so.
And
And they get full cost recovery for those kinds of trips, right?
yes, so I was just to say that the occupants were very happy to pay the cost, and that was good. So there's also a little list here of typical rides where people are using the handy bus and those types of things. At the bottom, I know we talked about this with our budgeting, but the handy bus is requesting a sum of money for 2021, $12,500 to again assist them in the delivery of the service, which town of Raymond and those on the outside of Raymond have continued to use. I haven't heard anything different, but I expect the county of Warner would contribute their regular share. And so I think that, Ms. Clark wasn't able to make it here today, but I think that she will probably make a presence at some point. We're gonna meet again early January to discuss our budgets and what the operation will look like for 2021, but just wanted to kind of keep that at the forefront that the handy bus is requesting money for 2021.
So what was the request last year? Is it the same? 12.5?
It was 15,000 last year.
Oh, they've gone down. Okay,
Yeah, and this group is very into fundraising. We got a really good group here. We've added a few more members. And this COVID has kind of put a damper on lots of things, including our ability to host some fundraising efforts for the handy bus. But I think the handy bus would appreciate any type of funds we can help them out with.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the meeting from the Handy Bus Society is going to be postponed, but we're quite excited to have a president and vice president from general members of the community. We look at that as a step in the right direction for the service, to be a bit more independent from the town. And at some point here, we will have a presentation from the Handy Bus. It just didn't work out today.
well, I think that's great that you have people from the community wanting to be involved. I was on that committee for 4 years or maybe even longer. And it was just me and Keith Palmer and then Phil Jensen. So I'm glad to see that. That's you're doing a great job, Councillor Peters and Abe.
It's like I told you, it's the group, Carmen Clark and Lacey and Sherry and a couple others have come on and are very determined to help this program be successful. So all the credit goes to them, and Abe's doing a tremendous job.
They would do a good job.
Thanks, Bryce.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on this? Okay, let's move on to the next item then. 3.2, the 2021 general election. This was pretty interesting. Go ahead, Curtis.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Yeah, I'll let Abe do it.
Abe,
Wonderful.
okay.
Get your nominations prepared on.
Yeah. Can have our
So
nomination
there
papers
are
in 3 weeks.
There are some
We
changes
have
to
them
the Local Authorities Election Act. Quite a few changes, lots of the advertising and fundraising. We're talking today about changes to the nomination period. And that's why this item is on the agenda. In the past nomination day, it was literally one day. You had to submit your nominations. Next year, for those of you who are really eager to get your nominations in, you can do it January 1st. And so we want to be ready and to accept nominations and to train staff. And so what we would like is for council next week to appoint myself as the returning officer, as the Legislative Services Director. It can be myself or Curtis. But traditionally, I think that's who's done it at the town. And appoint Curtis, the CAO, Curtis Pratt, as the substitute returning officer. And those motions give us the authority to go about and prepare for the election and again to receive nomination. There is one other consideration and one other change on this paper. There's a brief here for council, and that is location for filing nomination papers. Municipalities can designate multiple locations. For filing nomination papers, we don't feel that's necessarily something we need in Raymond. Usually, or most likely that's something for municipal districts and counties that have very large areas. That would make it a lot easier for people from different parts of the county or the municipal district to drop off nomination papers. So we're not suggesting we exercise that option, but we are kind of bringing that to your attention as one of the changes that's happened. And that has to be a bylaw that's passed before December 31st, 2020. So there are a lot of other options for council to consider as we move into the election year. I'll just read off a few of the things that we did last election. We held institutional votes. We printed ballots and lots. We provided for special ballots, nomination deposit requirements, and we had incapacitated voters enabled to vote at home. Some of these options require a bylaw, and some of them are just a motion of council. Moreover, they're with COVID-19 still kind of very much an active part of society. There's going to be some considerations there as well. A lot of those items, though, there's going to be a lot of time to talk about those. So for now, what we're looking for is motions to approve the returning officer and the substitute returning officer. And we'll bring that back to council next week.
Okay, that's interesting. So one thought, you maybe should have the last day for nominations too on there. I'm not sure when that would be. People might want to submit and they're waiting till the very end to put it in. A nomination to run for council or mayor.
Yeah, so
In the bylaw, we'll do that.
I think it's 4 weeks before election day.
For
But we are going to prepare, we usually prepare a nomination package that will have all that pertinent information for members of the public. We'll put that up on the website, and we'll definitely present that to council at some point as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments from anybody? If not, we'll see that next week.
It's interesting.
2021, the town of Raymond interim operating budget. Is this why Marty, you're here? You want to talk, Marty, or is this Curtis?
So Martin's here for questions if you have it, but also for some of our closed session matters. But realistically, every year the municipality needs to pass an interim operating budget to carry us forward from year to year. So we need to have a budget passed so that we can spend money from January of 2021 on until when the budget's actually passed. And so this is basically just a continuation of 2020's budget with some added updates. There is still more tweaking that needs to happen, and we'll have to do that as we get more information from the province. But effectively, we're just wanting you to review it, bring it back to council next week to pass, so that we have the ability to extend funds come January 1st until the budget's actually passed close to April.
Is there going to be another finance and audit committee, Marty? Like, I haven't been notified of one since I replaced Rob.
I was hoping to have one Thursday.
This Thursday?
Yep. If Councillor Fromm, Councillor Foss, and yourself are available, we can do it on whereby and just do the normal reports that we've done in the last few committee meetings. Audit and Fund Committee meeting, that is.
I think I'm available. I'm not sure about the other two.
It's usually, we usually do the Audit Finance Committee meeting the Thursday prior to your second council meeting every month.
That's true.
So that's this coming Thursday. And I could get an agenda out tomorrow for that, if you are willing to do that.
Councillor Fromm, Councillor Foss?
I have a meeting every Thursday from 5 to 6 in Lethbridge. Is it possible to do it at 7 or 8? Is 8 your preferred time, Marty?
We've always done it at 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, that works for me still. Sorry about that, you guys.
Okay.
And that works for me too.
Good, thank you.
I will get an agenda out first thing tomorrow. I've done most of the reports up and got them all ready, so we're just putting it together and sending them out.
Thanks, Marty.
And we can actually discuss the 2021 budget in a little more detail if you want to do that too.
Sure. Sounds good. Okay, we'll look forward to that meeting on Thursday.
Okay,
Thank you.
any questions about the 2021 budget that is on there?
No.
Okay, doesn't look like there's any. Okay, thank you.
That's always nice.
We hope we'll have questions for you on Thursday, so.
There would have been questions if Ralph was here.
Yeah.
We miss him.
Sure.
He's here in spirit and I can hear him whispering in my ears, so.
Good, we'll have the best budgets ever, won't we? That's great.
Yeah, cause he knows what's coming up next year.
Yeah, he might know something we don't know.
He can see in the future where we can.
Okay, we'll move to 3.4. Instead of the COVID update, I asked Curtis if he could give us a brief history on the Water Commission, policing, Chief Mountain, and emergency and fire.
So in 2006, 7, 8, somewhere in that range, the town of Raymond needed to upgrade its water treatment plant. The village of Sterling was in a very similar situation. Both municipalities went independently to the province for funding, and both municipalities were told, we are not going to fund you independently. There's a potential that we'll fund you guys together if you'll form a regional services commission. And so a general meeting was had where Raymond, Sterling, with a regional commission, the village of Warner, and representatives from the county at that time did not have an interest in participating. And so the town of Raymond took the lead in the project management of the relocation and construction of our new regional water treatment plant, which is up on Ridge Reservoir, or just north of Ridge Reservoir. In 2014, and I should just specify, the town of Raymond has always been the managing partner and the operators for that facility. In 2014, the village of Warner and the county of Warner came on as members of the commission, and a pipeline was built that the county of Warner received funding for from the province to run a pipeline from the water treatment plant to New Dayton, the village of Warner, and then off to Rentham in 2 phases. And at that point, those municipalities came on as voting members as well. And so historically, for the Water Commission, it's been a town of Raymond-led initiative of management and and operators. They were town employees at the beginning, and we've kind of carried on in that path. There is another operator that's been hired in 2018 that actually lives in the Mouth River region, and but is still considered a town of Raymond employee. And we just went through a process of hiring additional operators, and one was an existing town of Raymond employee, and another one was a resident from the town of Raymond. And just for information on that, just for clarification, we did have a third-party hiring agency take part in that hiring process, and they shortlisted the applicants and sent us people who they felt were of the highest quality, and so we interviewed those individuals. One was down from the States, and 2 were from the Raymond area. And so that's how we were able to come to those determinations. As far as the Peace Officer Commission.
Just let me stop you for a sec.
Okay.
So when I got on council, that's when we were talking with Associated Engineering about building that water plant. And so, yeah, I've been there since that was built and started to operate, so.
Yeah, it was commissioned in 2009. It was $13 million approximately, and it produces very, very high quality water, and it's various improvements and additions have been added to it since that time, and it is a very actually high functioning utility that I think we can all be proud of.
So just to clarify, you said it wasn't until 2014 that the county of Warner came on board?
Approximately.
Okay, great, thank you, go ahead. Any other questions from anybody first? Okay, go ahead.
The Peace Officer Service was initially a town of Raymond led initiative as well. We hired a level 1 community peace officer in 2011, I believe. That individual, it was a one officer operation. It later expanded to a 3-man operation where the village of Sterling, the town of McGrath, and the county of Warner were all equal partners. Well, not necessarily equal partners, sorry, but they're all founding members of the commission, which became, instead of it being a town of Raymond employee, it became the Ridge Regional Public Safety Services Committee. In 2020, it actually achieved commission status, where it is now an independent entity. But again, the town of Raymond has provided the employees and the management or the administration services for that entity from inception to date. And so that's kind of where that service has originated and where it's evolved to. Is there any questions on that storyline?
So curious again, when did the county of Warner come on board on that one?
Abe, do you have an answer to that question? I would be guessing, but it's been within the last 5 or 6 years, I would imagine.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't have an answer for that.
They've been members for at least the last 4 to 5 years, though, or maybe longer. So it's been for quite some time. Since
So
then.
they had their own peace officer, and then he retired, and then they got a new one, and then they let him go. So I think they didn't have one for at least a year, maybe a little bit longer. And then when they did come, they came with a truck and equipment.
Yeah. Yes, they donated that infrastructure that they had to the commission, or to the organization, which was very much valued at that time. And I might just say, since we're talking about the peace officer service.
That was 2017.
Okay.
That they came on board?
Yeah.
Okay, so I stand
Just
corrected.
barely,
It's a
really.
little
Yeah.
more
Seems longer
recent.
than that.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's basically our term.
yeah,
No,
okay,
it's
go
not.
ahead.
They
I
were-
it's
want
earlier?
to say too,
Okay.
previously to the peace officer, we had a municipal bylaw enforcement officer. It was a part-time position. And there were there's challenges and obstacles that individual did an amazing job trying to overcome, but just the way it was structured, they really weren't put in a position to really succeed despite their best efforts, and they did an incredible job. However, it just wasn't set up right. By going to a peace officer service where we are sharing the costs with these 4-member municipalities. Actually, Abe, who are the members now? Did we just add?
Yeah, so it's Milk River, Village of Warner, Sterling, County of Warner, and the town of Raymond.
Okay, so the town of McGrath dropped out a year or so ago, and the town of Milk, or Village of Warner, just came on recently. So it is
That's right.
literally almost the entire county of Warner. I believe we have service agreements with Coots, is that correct? On an as-needed basis?
Yep, and we have one with McGrath as well, and we have done a little bit of work for Coaldale. They were in a pinch a little while ago, and we are still kind of offering services to them.
So when you add up the costs to run the service, the equipment costs, the dispatch costs, the operator costs, when you break it down, the added benefits that we're getting for the additional funding that we're paying far outweighs the value of what we had previously. And so I think we would administratively recommend that this is something that is in perpetuity for the town of Raymond and the region, because it does bring tremendous value. Any questions on the peace officer service?
I have one, but I'm holding it until I hear about the third one, because I want to lump them all together, if you don't mind.
Okay, so Chief Mountain Regional Solid Waste Authority has been in inception for a number of years. It was completely independent, and it is more independent than the Peace Officer Service and the Water Commission. We did not start the Chief Mountain Regional Solid Waste Authority. It was been in effect for decades. It's an independent board made up of 13 individual towns, counties, villages, and blood tribe. And in 17, 18, they approached Scott Burke, who was the CAO of the town of Raymond, to see if they could assist. He would be able to assist them with some transition. There has been discussion about trying to evolve the organization from an authority into a commission. And there was a best practices study that they wanted to initiate to try and find operational efficiencies and better ways to do things. And so Scott led that initiative, or agreed, the town of Raymond and Scott agreed to provide that service. When Scott retired, Abe, our legislative services director, was appointed by the Chief Mountain Region Solid Waste Authority to be their SEO, and has been fulfilling that role ever since. And now the commission, it is actually a commission, so it's actually moved from an authority status to a commission status, which is giving it far more legitimacy and stability going forward. So the peace officer service is a very nominal fee that's being paid to the town to provide that service. The Chief Mountain Regional Solid Waste is a contract that I believe is, well, it's much more generous, but it's to try and compensate the town for the time that Abe is spending doing that work instead of working for the town of Raymond. And same with the water commission, there is an amount paid to the town of Raymond to provide that service instead of the time, and I fill that role for the water commission. So when I'm working on water commission time, it's not the town of Raymond subsidizing that, it's paid for by the commission. And then the final one that the mayor asked to talk about was just the Joint Fire Services Committee. It's been the town of Raymond Fire Department for decades. The county of Warner was a member in about 2011, and these dates aren't 100% right, but there was a time since I've been with the town that they actually worked part of the fire department, and then they later came back to the fire department a few years later, and at this point they are 50-50 members with the fire department to provide 50-50 funding or 50-50 response. And Abe Tinney is also providing the administrative support to that service. It's a board made up of equal representation from the town council and from the county council. The town had approached the county about potentially spinning that off into its own independent commission as well. And there was agreement at the joint committee level, but the town of Raymond Council passed motions approving that, but the county council at the time just felt that there wasn't a need, I believe was their reasoning, to take that added step. And so it hasn't progressed from a committee to a commission as of yet.
Okay. Well, good job. Any questions from anybody? That was good, Curtis. I appreciate that.
I have a question.
Councillor Fromm?
There's been some thought that it'd be much more efficient to take the three that you spoke of first and hire a CEO to run all three of them, and relieve the town of Raymond from its responsibilities with the three entities. What do you think of that?
Are you directing that to me or to the council?
Everybody, I guess. Probably mostly you, Curtis, and Abe.
Well, I mean, from an operational business perspective, I think there is legitimacy to that presence. You could hire an individual to provide the services that we are providing. That would be their full-time operation versus an appendage to their job. They'd be running the 3 or 4 organizations, whereas right now our focuses are on a bunch of other priorities as well as those. So I think there is some legitimacy to that question. The concerns that I would have is the town of Raymond, especially with the water commission, these are town of Raymond employees. They're town of Raymond operators, but they are under town of Raymond payroll, town of Raymond benefits, town of Raymond pension. And I would have some concerns with having either a CAO from another municipality or just I don't want to say this negatively, but a random person that's just hired to fulfill that role that doesn't have a tie to the organization having control or say over our employees. So there would have to be some form of determination as to what that relationship would look like. But at the same time, I mean, these are initiatives that the town of Raymond has spearheaded from day one, by and large. And with the water commission, we are the largest user by about a 2/3 percentage almost. And from the peace officer service, it's a more equally weighted one. And Abe, I think you can maybe answer this question better, but the peace officer commission, does it now have the designated powers for the employees, or does that still remain with the town of Raymond?
No, it is the commission that does it now. The town of Raymond is not the authorized employer.
Okay, so that organization, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it would be easier for that organization to transition, potentially to a third party. But again, the peace officers have town of Raymond benefits, town of Raymond pension, town of Raymond payroll, And so there would have to be added cost incurred by these other organizations to take on those expenses, versus having them just lumped in within the town's existing plans.
So it's not going to be easy to extricate Raymond from all of these services and commissions, is it?
Chief Mount would be very easy. The peace officer service is easier, but the water commission and the fire department, I say, would be very difficult. Or
Okay.
I would not, administratively, we would have a hard time recommending that.
I wouldn't support that either.
This came up at the fire services meeting yesterday morning.
Water commission?
Pardon?
Water commission meeting, was it?
No, it was the fire services.
Okay.
So it came from Randy Taylor, and he is desirous of doing this, and so we're gonna have a committee meeting on January 14th, and then another one in February before the water commission meeting, so we can make a presentation. So we've just asked him to come up with, like he said, there were problems, and he wasn't specific when asked, and he said there could be some efficiencies. So we're going to put his feet to the fire and have him tell us what are the problems and what are the efficiencies. So we'll have an honest look at it. But I just feel it's a little coincidental that it's at this particular time. So for various reasons. Anyway, we're going to watch and see what happens.
I have a comment to make on this.
Martin, go ahead.
I'm really interested in any input you've got, all of you.
Department is what is owned by the town. And any service that we provide from the fire department is provided to another municipality. And so when Scott originally went to the county and says, we want you to pay your fair share, which was 50%, most of the calls that the fire department were handling were in the county. And so they said, you're not paying your fair share, and so that's why the fire department and the county got together and split it 50-50. Now, if they want to get out of the town, they need to create some sort of a commission to do that with, because all of that equipment and everything is owned by the town. It is not owned by the county and the town, other than what the county contributes to the operational side of that.
This is all really valuable to me, really interesting. All this history, any information I can take with me to that January 14th meeting will be really valuable.
I think the fire service administration will be very, very difficult, and I don't, just to echo Martin's words, I don't think you'd be able to wrestle the control of that away from the town. The peace officers, separate commission, Chief Mountain, separate commission, and the water is also a separate commission, and so that's maybe a little more up in the air. I believe that we provide tremendous value to those services, and ultimately, those are board decisions on what they want to do with how they want their commission administered. And so, as a board member, you will come together and have conversations on whether or not there is value there, and if there's better value to be seen elsewhere. And so I think at each board there's going to have to be conversations if that subject is brought up. And I'll stand by the town of Raymond absolutely and say that we do provide, we do provide tremendous value. But again, those are all contracts and those are all conversations for the respective commissions, in my opinion. But Councillor Fromm, I'd be happy to provide you with some background information in the meantime.
Good, load my guns, because I will also stand aggressively for the town of Raymond, and that committee is going to consist of Randy Taylor and Lindsay, forget his last name right now. Tyler, and Kevin Nielsen and myself, and Randy will chair it.
So if the fire department, if that fire department thing is brought up, if the county decided to go in conjunction with Sterling and with Warner and with Milk River and do it for the whole county combined, that would be a totally different thing. But they only are doing this with us. They do not have agreements with Sterling, with Warner, with Milk River, any of those other municipalities.
Good. The more information I get like this, the better I'll feel going to the meeting.
Okay, the only other thing I'll say
That's why we thought we'd bring up the idea of, well, let's do a commission for the fire department and get Sterling and get Warner and get Milk River all involved, so we have a huge regional base to support and help. But I don't know why the county backed out, but they did.
Well, I have no idea what complaints he referenced. He just said there are complaints, and when asked, he wouldn't be specific. So
I would encourage you to have those conversations. I'm sorry, Curtis, you're trying to get in here, so I won't cut you off. But those are board conversations, Councillor From, and just encourage to try to have open communication at those levels. And again, I'll stand by the value that we've given. So,
thank you.
Curtis.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say, and not to contradict what Martin was saying, is I think to do a county-wide commission, there would be some difficulties just trying to get the different fire halls in the county under one umbrella. So I don't know if we've ever anticipated that in this conversation. It was strictly just the town and the county for the Raymond and District Fire Department that we were looking to have it as a commission. Where it went from there in the future could be decided then, but I think our initial intent was just to have that one entity that would hold the debt for if you had to buy new pumper trucks or new response equipment. It's not the town or the county funding that, it's the debt or whatever being held by another party. And so it's not a budget implication necessarily as directly to the individual municipality, so.
And we also are up against our debt limits, whereas if we were to borrow money to get another big fire truck, that debt limit would fall upon the town of Raymond. So that's not good for us right now.
Okay, any other questions from anybody? Any other comments? That was very well done. Good. And thanks for contributing also, Abe and Marty. And Curtis, good job. I just thought we needed to have that, and I thought the public needed to hear that too, what those four commissions are all involved, how they're involved, and their history on them. Anyone else have anything on that? If not, we'll go to our closed session. We need a motion to go into close.
I'll move to go into closed session.
Yes.
Councillor Harker moves. All in favor? Okay, good.
Go ahead.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay, I move that we come out of closed session.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, good enough. And then we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Um,
Thanks, Marty, for coming in.